The members of the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence as they watched the battle unfold on their viewing screens. None of them had expected to witness anything like this when they first detected unusual energy readings from the small star system at the edge of the outer rim. High Admiral Rex of the Council's observation fleet adjusted his sensory stocks, making sure his visual inputs were functioning correctly. What he saw defied all known rules of space combat. The human vessels, primitive ships by galactic standards, were engaged in combat with a notorious pirate fleet that had been raiding the sector. But instead of following standard combat protocols, the human ships were doing something unprecedented. They're ramming their ships into the enemy. Rex's assistant whispered in disbelief. Indeed, the human vessels were deliberately colliding with pirate ships to protect what appeared to be civilian transport vessels. The humans were sacrificing their own warships to ensure the survival of non-combatants. Captain James Miller stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Thunder, his jaw clenched tight as he watched another of his ships go down in flames. The colony ships behind him carried over 2,000 civilians, families who had invested their life savings in humanity's first extrasolar colony. Status report. Miller barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Sir, the Victory and the Defiant are gone. Warrior is heavily damaged but still fighting. The pirate fleet has lost 6 ships, but they still outnumber us 3-1. Miller nodded grimly. And the colony ships? Safe for now, sir. They're at 80% of the jump distance needed to escape. The captain allowed himself a small smile. The pirates had expected easy prey when they ambushed the colony fleet. Instead, they had found themselves facing the full fury of humanity's first space defense force. In the council chamber, the alien observers continued to watch with a mixture of horror and fascination. They saw how the human ships deliberately took hits meant for the civilian vessels, saw how they fought on even when their hulls were breached and their crews were exposed to vacuum. Impossible, muttered one council member, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion. Their ships are burning. Their crews must be dying. Why don't they retreat? High Admiral Rex had no answer. In all his cycles of military service, he had never seen a species willing to sacrifice themselves so readily for others. Back on the Thunder, Miller made his decision. All power to forward shields. Plot a collision course with their flagship. His crew didn't hesitate. They had all sworn an oath to protect Earth's citizens, and they would die fulfilling that oath if necessary. Colony ships at 90% of jump distance, reported the tactical officer. Miller keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the captain. Brace for impact. It has been an honor serving with you. The Thunder accelerated, its engines burning white-hot. The pirate flagship tried to evade, but Miller's helm officer had been the top of her class. The impact was devastating. The council members watched as the human flagship tore through the pirate vessel, destroying both ships but creating a gap in the pirate formation. Through this gap, the colony ships finally made their jump to safety. The remaining human vessels, despite their catastrophic damages, pressed the attack. The pirates, shaken by the humans' willingness to die fighting, began to retreat in disorder. When the battle was over, the council chamber remained silent for several long moments. Finally, High Admiral Rex spoke. Send word to all council races. The humans, they do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not follow the rules of warfare as we know them. They are willing to die not just for victory, but for the mere chance to save others. He paused, his sensory stalks quivering. Mark their species as extremely dangerous. But also note this, they fought not for conquest or glory, but to protect their people. Remember this day. It may be that we have just witnessed the emergence of both the most terrifying and most noble military force in the galaxy. The council members nodded in agreement, not yet realizing that this was only their first glimpse of humanity's capacity for warfare. They would soon learn much more, and what they learned would change the galaxy forever. 2 months after the pirate incident, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with heated debate. The massive circular room, with its towering crystalline walls, echoed with the voices of 100 different species. "These humans are nothing but lucky primitives," declared Head Counselor Dash, his blue scales shimmering under the chamber's lights. "One victory against pirates does not make them a significant force." Commander Tom Richards of Earth's Defense Force stood silently at the chamber center, his weathered face betraying no emotion. He had spent the last 3 hours trying to warn the Council about the Dominion's aggressive movements near human space. "The Dominion has gathered a fleet of over 300 warships," Richards stated again, his voice calm but firm. "Our intelligence suggests they plan to attack our colonies." Several council members laughed, the sound echoing strangely from their various vocal organs. Head Counselor Dash waved a scaled hand dismissively. "Commander, the Dominion is a civilized empire that has been part of galactic society for millennia. They would not waste resources attacking your developing worlds." In the shadows of the chamber's upper tier, the Dominion's representative, Lord Vex, watched with cold amusement. His species' natural ability to blend with darkness kept him nearly invisible as he recorded the proceedings. Richards tried one last time. "With all due respect, we've seen their fleet movements. We've intercepted communications. They're coming, and if the Council won't help, Earth will stand alone." "Perhaps," Head Counselor Dash replied, "you should focus on developing your technology rather than spreading paranoid accusations." Back on Earth, Richard stood before the Defense Council, delivering his report in the underground bunker that served as humanity's military headquarters. "They won't help," he said simply. "The Council thinks we're paranoid primitives who got lucky against pirates." General Wilson, head of Earth's combined military forces, nodded grimly. "Then we do this the hard way." Status of our preparations. Richards activated a holographic display showing Earth's colonies and defense positions. "We've evacuated all non-essential personnel from the outer colonies. Military installations are hardened and supplied. The civilian militia training program is at 90% completion. And the new weapons, ready for deployment. The Dominion expects primitive kinetic weapons. They don't know about our latest developments." Meanwhile, aboard the Dominion's flagship Imperial Might, Lord Vex presented his findings to High Commander Zark. "The Council dismissed their warnings completely," Vex reported, his dark form rippling with satisfaction. "They still think the humans are barely worth noting." High Commander Zark's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Excellent. Our invasion fleet will strike 3 human colonies simultaneously. Their primitive defenses will crumble, and will have their resources and territories before the Council can react." "What about their unusual tactics during the pirate incident?" "A fluke. No species would consistently sacrifice themselves in battle. It defies all logical military doctrine." Back on Earth, Commander Richards stood at the window of his office, watching troops train in the rain below. They had been at it for 16 hours straight, refusing to stop despite the harsh conditions. His communicator beeped. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected Dominion ships entering our space. 3 separate fleets, heading for Parker's World, New Eden, and Hope Colony." Richards closed his eyes for a moment. "Send the alert. Initiate Operation Dark Winter." He paused, then added, "And may God have mercy on them, because they have no idea what they're about to face." Across Earth's colonies, sirens began to wail. Civilians moved to hardened shelters while militia members took their positions. Regular Army units activated their cloaking fields, and orbital defense platforms powered up silently. The Dominion fleets approached confidently, their sensors showing only minimal defensive preparations. They had no way of knowing that humans had learned warfare through millennia of fighting each other, that they had perfected the art of appearing weak when they were strong. As the first Dominion ships entered orbit around the colonies, Commander Richards sent one final message to all human forces. "Remember your training. Remember Earth. And show them why humanity has survived every war we've ever fought." The trap was set. The Dominion was about to learn why underestimating humans was the last mistake many had made throughout history. The Dominion's first assault waves hit the human colonies with overwhelming force. Their massive ships darkened the skies above Parker's world, New Eden, and Hope Colony, raining down what they thought would be a devastating first strike. Lieutenant Anna Cooper watched from her camouflaged bunker as enemy dropships descended through New Eden's atmosphere. The young officer smiled grimly as she remembered the countless drills and preparations for this moment. All units, maintain radio silence. She whispered into her neural comm. Let them land. Let them think they've won. Above, the Dominion forces celebrated what appeared to be an easy victory. Their initial scans showed minimal resistance, just a few scattered defensive positions that their bombardment had quickly eliminated. These humans are even weaker than we thought, Commander Rax of the Dominion forces declared, watching through his ship's view screen. Begin landing the occupation forces. What the Dominion didn't know was that the defensive positions they'd destroyed were decoys. The real human forces lay hidden in underground bunkers, ancient tunnel systems, and camouflaged forest positions. They had spent months preparing the battlefield. As the first wave of Dominion troops landed, they found seemingly abandoned cities and settlements. Their confidence grew with each empty building they secured. Lieutenant Cooper watched through her advanced scope as a Dominion patrol passed within meters of her position. The aliens stood over 2 meters tall, their armor gleaming in the morning sun. They moved with the arrogance of conquerors who expected no resistance. All units, she whispered, execute Operation Nightmare. The response was immediate and devastating. The ground beneath the Dominion troops erupted as hidden charges detonated, not to kill but to disorient. From countless concealed positions, human soldiers emerged wearing powered armor that the Dominion hadn't known existed. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing in the face of humans fighting on their own terms. Cooper led her squad in a lightning attack, using the confusion to maximum effect. Their weapons, specifically designed to penetrate Dominion armor, proved brutally effective. Impossible, screamed a Dominion officer as his troops fell. They're supposed to be primitives. Above the battlefield, Dominion commanders watched in horror as similar scenes played out across all 3 colonies. Human forces seemed to appear from nowhere, striking hard and fast, before disappearing again into hidden tunnels and bunkers. When the Dominion tried to bombard the human positions from orbit, they discovered another surprise. Hidden anti-orbital batteries opened up, their existence masked until that moment by advanced stealth technology. Several Dominion ships fell from the sky, their crews never knowing what hit them. They fight in the rain, reported one panicked Dominion soldier. They fight in the dark. They appear from nowhere and vanish like ghosts. Lieutenant Cooper led her troops through the underground tunnel network, emerging behind enemy lines to strike again. The humans had studied Earth's guerrilla warfare tactics for centuries, and now they put that knowledge to devastating use against an alien force that had never experienced such combat. Remember, Cooper told her troops during a brief rest, we're not just fighting for these colonies. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. As night fell, the Dominion forces tried to regroup. They had expected to secure the colonies within hours. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, that struck without warning and disappeared before retaliation was possible. In their command ships, Dominion leaders received increasingly desperate reports from the ground. They're attacking in the middle of storms. They fight while injured. They have weapons we can't detect. They know the terrain better than we do. Lieutenant Cooper gathered her troops for another night raid. In the darkness, she smiled, knowing that the real horror for the Dominion was just beginning. Humans had perfected the art of warfare over thousands of years of fighting each other. Now, these aliens were about to learn why Earth's history books were filled with tales of mighty empires that fell to seemingly weaker forces that simply refused to give up. All units, she whispered, prepare for Phase 2. Let's show them why humans are the galaxy's worst nightmare. The Dominion High Command received the most disturbing military report in their 1,000-year history. The massive holographic display showed 3 separate streams of data from their invasion forces, and none of it made sense. High Commander, a junior officer reported, his voice trembling. Our troops are refusing to fight. High Commander Zark slammed his fist on the table. Impossible. The Dominion military has never retreated. What is causing this? The officer activated a series of battlefield recordings. The first showed a squad of Dominion soldiers advancing through a ruined city on New Eden. Suddenly, several human bodies on the ground, previously thought dead, sprang to life, attacking the patrol from behind. They pretend to be dead, the officer explained, his scales pale with fear. No civilized species has ever used such deception in warfare. Another recording played, showing human soldiers fighting in complete darkness, using their natural night vision abilities that the Dominion had never known about. Yet another showed humans continuing to fight despite injuries that would have incapacitated any other known species. Our psychological analysis team has compiled a report, the officer continued. It's troubling. The report flashed onto the main screen. Human combat analysis. Fight in all weather conditions. Continue combat while injured. Use deception as standard tactics. Show no fear of death. Adapt to enemy tactics within hours. Psychological warfare experts. Employ plain dead technique. Fight effectively in darkness. Use primitive weapons alongside advanced technology. Warning. Morale impact on our troops. See viewer. Our soldiers are experiencing severe psychological trauma, the officer explained. They report that humans don't fight like any enemy we've encountered. They're everywhere and nowhere. They appear from the ground, from walls, from ceilings. They fight when they should be dead. They keep coming no matter how many we kill. In a forward command post on Parker's World, a Dominion field commander named Kex watched his troops return from another failed patrol. Their armor was dented and scraped, but worse was the look in their eyes. Sir, one soldier reported, we can't tell who's alive or dead anymore. The humans, they just keep coming. We killed 3 of them, confirmed the kills, but then they got up and killed 6 of ours before we could react. Kex reviewed the day's combat footage. He watched in horror as human soldiers used what they called plain possum, pretending to be dead only to attack when Dominion troops passed by. Such tactics were unheard of in galactic warfare. They're in the walls. Another soldier screamed suddenly, firing at shadows. They're always in the walls. Back at High Command, the reports continued to pour in. Human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. Their tactics were evolving, adapting to each Dominion strategy within hours. Most disturbing, the junior officer continued, is their use of psychological warfare. They've begun broadcasting the history of human warfare to our troops. The footage of their past conflicts, the brutality, the endless fighting. High Commander Zark watched the human historical records with growing dread. Thousands of years of constant warfare, battles in every possible terrain. Endless adaptations and innovations in the art of combat. Sir, the officer added quietly, there's something else. We've intercepted their communications. They're enjoying this. Their soldiers share jokes during battle. They make comedy about death. They have no fear. A new report flashed on the screen. 3 more Dominion units had surrendered after their troops refused to continue fighting. The psychological impact of facing an enemy that broke every rule of warfare had shattered their morale. These humans, Zark muttered, they're not just soldiers. They're predators. Natural warriors evolved through millennia of constant conflict. He looked at the latest casualty reports and made a decision he never thought he'd make. Send word to all commands. Pull back to defensive positions. We need to completely reassess our understanding of human warfare. But even as he gave the order, Zark knew it might be too late. His mighty military machine was facing something it had never encountered before, an enemy that didn't just fight wars, they lived for them. General Robert Hayes stood in Earth's Central Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of Operation Thunderstrike. After 3 weeks of letting the Dominion think they were merely fighting a defensive war, it was time to show them humanity's true capabilities. "All battle groups report ready, sir," his aide announced. "Operation Thunderstrike can commence on your order." Hayes looked at the tactical display one last time. The Dominion had no idea that while they were struggling with ground forces on 3 colonies, humanity had secretly assembled its real fighting force. "Send the code," Hayes ordered. "All units, execute Thunderstrike." Across 7 different star systems, human warships dropped their stealth fields simultaneously. The Dominion's early warning systems were overwhelmed as hundreds of vessels suddenly appeared where there had seemingly been empty space. "Multiple human fleets detected," screamed a Dominion sensor operator. "They're everywhere." While the Dominion had been focused on the ground battles, humanity had positioned its main battle fleets using technology adapted from their guerrilla warfare experience. Now those fleets struck with devastating precision. In orbit around New Eden, Admiral Kate Porter led the first wave. "All ships, commence attack pattern Delta. Show them what a real human offensive looks like." The human ships moved in formations that seemed chaotic to Dominion observers, but were the result of centuries of naval warfare theory. They struck from multiple angles, using smaller ships to screen for larger ones in tactics developed long ago on Earth's oceans. "How?" demanded High Commander Zark as reports flooded in. "How did they hide an entire battle fleet?" The answer came in the form of more surprises. Human ships performed maneuvers that Dominion tactical computers classified as impossible. They used debris as cover, executed slingshot maneuvers around planets, and demonstrated combat techniques that had never been seen in galactic warfare. On the ground, Lieutenant Cooper's forces launched their own offensive. "All units, initiate Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them why you never corner a human army." The defensive positions that had frustrated the Dominion for weeks transformed into staging grounds for lightning-fast attacks. Human forces emerged from their hidden bunkers and tunnels in massive numbers, using combined arms tactics that left the aliens reeling. "They're using primitive projectile weapons alongside energy weapons," reported a panicked Dominion officer. "Our shields are calibrated for energy attacks. The projectiles are getting through." General Hayes watched with grim satisfaction as reports came in from all theaters of war. The Dominion was learning the hard way about humanity's mastery of combined arms warfare, the coordination of different military branches and weapons systems in ways that multiplied their effectiveness. "Sir," his aide reported, "the Dominion is attempting to retreat from New Eden, but Admiral Porter's forces have cut off their escape route." Hayes nodded. "Just as planned. Now they'll learn why you never let a human army get behind you." In space, the human fleets executed complex maneuvers that herded the Dominion ships into killing zones. On the ground, mechanized infantry units supported by aerospace fighters struck from multiple directions, using tactics refined through thousands of years of warfare. "The humans," a Dominion tactical officer reported frantically, "they're not just fighting with technology. They're using everything. Terrain, weather, psychology, deception. It's like fighting an entire planet's worth of combat evolution." General Hayes activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All units, press the advantage. Show them why humanity survived every war we ever fought against ourselves. Show them why we're still here after thousands of years of conflict." The Dominion forces found themselves trapped between space and ground forces, facing an enemy that seemed to have planned for every contingency. Human soldiers fought with a coordination and adaptability that seemed impossible. "They're not just warriors," High Commander Zark realized as he watched his forces crumble. "They're the product of endless conflict, shaped by millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of constant warfare. We never stood a chance." Operation Thunderstrike continued, and across the galaxy, Other species watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated why they were, without question, the most terrifying military force the galaxy had ever seen. The Dominion's military command center, once a symbol of their imperial might, had descended into chaos. Holographic displays flickered with countless distress signals as their forces faced complete collapse across multiple systems. High Commander Zark watched in horror as another battle group surrendered to the humans. His most elite units, warriors trained from birth, were breaking under the psychological strain of facing human forces. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "you need to see this. The humans. They're broadcasting something to all our troops." The main screen lit up with images that chilled even the hardened Dominion commanders to their core. It was human military history, not just recent battles, but thousands of years of warfare. The footage showed humans fighting in every conceivable condition. In freezing snow, burning deserts, dense jungles, and underground tunnels. "Stop that transmission," Zark ordered, but it was too late. Across the battlefield, Dominion soldiers watched as the humans demonstrated warfare techniques evolved over millennia. They saw ancient battles with primitive weapons, modern conflicts with advanced technology, and everything in between. The message was clear. Humans hadn't just learned to fight. They had spent their entire history perfecting the art of warfare. Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the captured Dominion communications. "You thought we were primitives. The truth is, we've been fighting wars since before your species learned to make fire. This is what we do. This is what we are." In Earth's command center, General Hayes monitored the psychological warfare campaign's effectiveness. Status report on enemy morale. His aide pulled up the latest data. "Total collapse, sir. The Dominion's troops are experiencing mass panic. Their entire military doctrine is based on superior technology and organized formations. They've never encountered an enemy that fights like us." Reports flooded in from all fronts. "They adapt to everything we do. Their weapons mix old and new technology. They fight in ways that make no sense. They show no fear of death." A Dominion psychological warfare expert, watching the human broadcasts, finally understood. "Their entire species evolved as pursuit predators," he reported. "They never stop. They never give up. They learn from every defeat and come back stronger." On the front lines, human forces demonstrated combined arms warfare with devastating effect. Tanks worked in perfect coordination with infantry. Aircraft supported ground troops with precision strikes. Space forces synchronized with planetary defenses. "It's beautiful," admitted a captured Dominion officer. "Terrible, but beautiful. Every unit supports the others. They fight as one organism, adapting and evolving mid-battle." The breaking point came during the Battle of New Eden's capital city. Human forces had surrounded the main Dominion army, but instead of a simple attack, they demonstrated something the aliens had never seen before. "They're attacking from everywhere at once," screamed a Dominion commander. "Ground, air, underground, buildings. How can they coordinate so many different types of assault?" Lieutenant Cooper led her troops through the city's underground tunnels, emerging behind enemy lines. "This is what we do," she told her soldiers. "We've had thousands of years to perfect urban warfare. Show them why you never fight humans in a city." The Dominion troops, already strained to their breaking point, faced an enemy that seemed to materialize from every shadow. Human soldiers appeared from sewers, repelled from buildings, and burst through walls. They used tactics refined through centuries of city fighting, turning the urban environment itself into a weapon. In orbit, Admiral Porter's fleet executed maneuvers that Dominion tactical computers couldn't predict. Human ships fought with a mixture of advanced technology and primitive brutality that defied all known combat doctrine. High Commander Zark watched his mighty military machine crumble in the face of humanity's relentless assault. His troops were not just being defeated, they were being thoroughly schooled in the art of war by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "We never understood," he muttered as another unit surrendered. "They're not just fighting us. They're fighting with the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of constant warfare. Every battle technique, every strategy, every tactic their species ever developed. They're using it all against us. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson. Humanity hadn't just developed technology. They had developed warfare into an art form. And the Dominion was watching their masterpiece. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of species watched as High Commander Zark of the Dominion approached the central podium to formally surrender. Behind him stood General Hayes and Lieutenant Cooper, their human forms looking deceptively small compared to the alien delegates. Yet every being in the chamber knew these small creatures had just brought the mighty Dominion to its knees. In all our history, Zark began, his voice echoing through the chamber, the Dominion has never offered surrender. Today, we do so not just out of defeat, but out of a new understanding of warfare itself. The terms of surrender were displayed on the chamber's main screens. The Dominion would withdraw from all human territories, pay reparations to the colonies they had attacked, and most importantly, acknowledge humanity's sovereign right to defend itself by any means necessary. Head Counselor Dash, who had once dismissed humans as lucky primitives, now stood with his scales pale with humility. The Council recognizes its error in judgment. We fail to understand what humans truly are. General Hayes stepped forward to address the assembly. Humanity doesn't want war, he stated firmly. We've had enough of it in our own history, but if forced to fight, we will bring to bear every lesson learned from thousands of years of conflict. The Council's military analysts presented their final report on human warfare. Official sci-fi. Humanity. Natural pursuit predators. Evolved for endurance combat. Masters of adaptive warfare. Capable of fighting in any environment. Unmatched psychological warfare capabilities. Extensive military history spanning millennia. Warning. Extreme danger if provoked. Lieutenant Cooper, still wearing her battle-worn armor, added her own observations. We developed warfare not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Each conflict taught us something new. Each battle made us stronger. We carry the combined knowledge of countless generations of warriors. The chamber erupted in discussion as species after species registered new protocols for dealing with human military forces. The phrase, "never fight a land war against humans," was quickly becoming the most repeated warning in galactic diplomatic circles. A holographic display showed footage from the final battles. The Dominion's troops, despite their advanced technology, had broken under the strain of facing an enemy that seemed to break every rule of conventional warfare. They fight in ways that make no sense, one alien analyst reported. They use primitive weapons alongside advanced technology. They employ strategies that seem chaotic, but are actually incredibly sophisticated. They treat warfare as both a science and an art. The Council established new guidelines. Human territories to be marked as approach with extreme caution. Military provocations against Earth or its colonies strictly forbidden. Human military expertise to be consulted in galactic defense matters. Warning: humans to be classified as apex predator warriors. As the formal proceedings concluded, High Commander Zark approached General Hayes privately. "There's one thing I must know," he said. "How did your species become so formidable?" Hayes smiled grimly. "We spent thousands of years fighting ourselves. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy was developed and refined through countless conflicts. When we finally reached the stars, we carried all that knowledge with us." The message spread quickly through the galaxy. Humans were not just another spacefaring race. They were living embodiments of warfare's evolution, carrying within them the combined combat experience of an entire species that had spent its history learning how to fight. In the years that followed, the galaxy settled into a new understanding. Humanity became known as peacekeepers, their very presence enough to prevent conflicts. The phrase "as dangerous as a human army" entered the galactic lexicon as the ultimate description of military might. Lieutenant Cooper, now teaching at the newly established Galactic Military Academy, often told her alien students, "The greatest irony is that humanity's mastery of warfare came from our deepest desire for peace. We learned to fight so well because we had to, not because we wanted to." And so the galaxy learned its lesson. In the vast expanse of space, among countless species and civilizations, human armies stood apart, not just as warriors, but as the living legacy of a species that had turned warfare into an art form and survival into a science. The most terrifying force in the galaxy turned out to be not the most advanced, but the most experienced. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their history.